Welcome. We'll get started shortly. Before we begin, here's how to earn continuing professional education credit for attending this session. There are no polling questions or attendance checks. Instead, you will demonstrate your knowledge by taking a brief multiple-choice quiz using the Earmark app. Visit earmark.app in your web browser. You can also download the mobile app by scanning the QR code on the screen. Log in, or if you're new, create your free account. Be sure to use a valid email address because that's where we'll send your course completion certificates. From the home screen, scroll down to find the course. You can also tap the magnifying glass icon to search for the course. Tap on the course artwork, then the Enroll button. On the Course tab, you'll find the recording and quiz questions. Complete the quiz to earn your CPE certificate. It takes us a few days to create the course on the app, so if you are attending this session live, please wait a few days. We'll email you a link to the course when it is ready. If you have questions or need help, email us at support@earmarkcpe.com. And now, on to the event.
Hi everyone, it's Mark Ferris here from Panalitix, and a very, very warm welcome if you're joining us live. Thank you so much for attending. I think you probably have some deadlines you're thinking about with September and October looming, so a very warm welcome. And if you're watching the recording, thank you very much for your time here. So we're talking about a topic which I find absolutely fascinating, and it's provocatively titled Making Money in Your Sleep, the mindset of business builders in accounting. And I hope you will get something out of this. Here's what we're going to do today. We're going to do a very quick introduction. We're going to talk about the challenge which faces many accounting businesses and accounting business owners that we deal with, and we're going to explore that. And then we're going to talk about the mindset of business building in accounting, because we feel in Panalitix that this is a really good opportunity to build not only a business that's vibrant and growing and rewarding, but also is a business that meets the goals of many of the owners that we deal with. And it's best to illustrate that with a case study, which we'll come on to towards the end. And we'll have some resources which may help you on your way if you decide to embrace some of the ideas that we talk about today. So let's get right into this. Again, a very warm welcome to everyone. A quick introduction on Panalitix. We're new to the Earmark platform, and by the way, thank you, Zach, and the team at Earmark for setting this up. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Panalitix, we've been working exclusively with accountants for over 20 years now. We don't work with other professional service organizations, and we are fortunate to serve clients across United States, Canada, and Northern European countries, Australia and New Zealand. It's fascinating actually to compare and contrast accountants in different regions. There are many more commonalities than there are differences. And a lot of what we do is coaching or mentoring. We do this in groups. With groups of accountants, sometimes one-to-one, more consultative engagements, and we offer short courses, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 12 weeks, to help you in a particular area. We are excited by our digital community called the Learning Hub, which basically stacks all of the resources, the courses, the tools, the templates, the checklists that we've developed or our clients have developed over many years. And so it's now AI enabled with a clone. You can ask questions of that clone. And so our clients are getting pretty good use out of that. And the kind of themes we work on with accountants are as follows. Some of them are trying to create more capacity in their business through better processes, through hiring, through organizing their teams, through managing teams better. Some of them have a growth agenda. How do I double the size of my business in 3 years or 5 years, maybe by acquisition or through organic growth? And some owners are trying to reduce dependence on themselves, because it's one thing to have a really vibrant, growing business, but if you are doing all the work or a disproportionate amount of the work, that's not a comfortable or long-term sustainable approach to business. So you might want to think about reducing dependence on one or a few people in the business. And some of our clients are approaching an exit opportunity, and they want to prepare their business so that they can benefit from that exit in the best possible ways. My confession is I'm not an accountant. I'm originally a lawyer, but I've had an entrepreneurial career. A lot of that has been based in Tokyo, Japan, where I was in a business building mode over 18 years and managed to exit on 3 occasions to third-party buyers, and have since moved to Australia, here on the beautiful Sunshine Coast, where I am enjoying building Panalitix and working with a lot of accountants around the world and learning from those accountants too. So that's a very brief profile about our background, which helps give some context in what we're going to discuss today. So let's get right into the challenge, which is going to address that title of making money in your sleep. So, you know, my experience with accountants is they're often highly skilled. This comes from their training, their master's degree in some cases, but then in more importantly, perhaps the experience that they've gleaned over many years of working with their clients. And it's not just skills, it's also the caring for their clients. They want their clients to succeed. They put a lot of energy into delivering excellence for their clients. They also want their teams to be happy. And there's obviously an economic reason for that. It's hard to build teams in accounting now, harder than it's been in the past. So there's a lot of energy and intent and desire put into crafting businesses in accounting. And that's a really wonderful thing. And it means we should try to get the rewards from that energy that we put in. At the same time, a lot of accountants have had limited business training. So, you know, if you think back to any courses you've taken in accounting, at what point did they say, look, here's how you run an accounting business. Here's how you establish one. Here's how you build it. Here's how you deal with challenges along the way. And remember, it's not just general business that's required if you're an owner of an accounting business. It's also entrepreneurial business skills, because an entrepreneur takes on risk, and coming with that are a lot of challenges which the accountant has to deal with. Challenges related to team, service offering, cash flow, managing clients, strategy, leadership, and so on. So there's not a lot of training. And, you know, all of this should be seen in the context of professional services, a field which is rapidly evolving. You know, if we were having this conversation 30, 40, 50 years ago, I think it would be quite different. The promise of professional services then was, well, it's a great industry to get into because you train yourself up, you get some unique skills, and then you were kind of guaranteed a long business life of deriving really good fees in a probably very reputable profession, working with good clients, which will set you up for a good working life and retirement. And that sounds great, doesn't it? But would we say that today to young people entering the profession? Some of them would look at accountants and say, well, wait, why is everyone working so hard? And why are the rewards not commensurate with the work that's going into this? And these are some of the challenges that we find with accountants, particularly leaders or owners of businesses. They feel that they're not sufficiently rewarded for the considerable value that they're providing to their clients. And this is probably not going to get better. That's the nature of evolution of professional services. And this is what we want to address, because we don't feel it has to be that way. And we feel that a mindset which is more business oriented, something that accountants haven't been exposed to as much, is entirely achievable. And it could realize for certain accountants exactly what they want out of their businesses and their careers. It'll help them to serve clients better, and it'll help them to build better and more productive and happier teams. But key to this is the mindset shift in the orientation of business. And that's what we're going to discuss today. Now, let me be clear. I don't believe there's only one way to do this. I don't believe there's a formula. I don't think everyone should necessarily embrace everything that we're going to talk about today. There's no right approach. But what I do think is you should give yourself choices as owners of accounting businesses. If you're an owner who says, look, I just love doing accounting day in and day out, and that's how I want to spend the next 30 years, that's absolutely great. that's wonderful, and you should be able to do that. If, however, the business becomes entirely dependent on you, and if you're not getting the rewards, whether those are financial or in terms of job satisfaction that you want, then you're probably not going to be as satisfied with your career and your business life as you might. So I think it's good to create choices for ourselves when we build our businesses. So that's a little bit of background to what we're going to talk about today, which is really developing the business mindset, which can free accountants from doing excessive amounts of work for little reward and building businesses which are robust, which are valuable, which people want to work in, and which clients want to work with. So let's get into that. I want to make a point here that this is not unique, by the way, to accounting. Look at these people who are obviously in the kitchen. They are preparing some food. It looks quite intricate. It looks like some kind of perhaps vegetable or salad dish. But look at the determination on their faces. Look at their intent and the dedication to getting this right. They're meticulous in their approach. Many accountants are meticulous in their approach to doing accounting, and perhaps they're very happy with how they are proceeding with this. I wonder if you know this gentleman. Probably many of you do, and I wonder if there are any foodies joining us today. But this is Gordon Ramsay, celebrated British chef. And it's interesting, if you read about him, he started out in the kitchens in quite less reputable establishments, is how he'd put it, but then he quickly got into very reputable establishment, honed his craft. But you will know him today perhaps as a television personality, as an author. He travels the world, and of course as a restaurant owner. And the point I'm making here is that he has those fundamental skills of food preparation. He knows how to do it, but he developed a mindset which took him away from the preparation of the food and got him closer to building a business which is less dependent on his ability to prepare the food and more about his understanding of business fundamentals. Again, I'm not saying there's one way to do this or one is right or wrong. I'm saying that if we have the option to build a business, then we might want to consider that. So a quick aside, we'll have a couple more of those in a second. Let's drill into this idea of mindset. And I'm going to, first of all, look at the issue of strategy. Strategy is absolutely key to leadership in businesses. It's how we build long-term value in our business. So let's look at some comparisons between what we might hear from a traditional accountant who has embraced the professional services mindset. And let's compare that with what we might find a business builder saying. So here's a really simple idea, and please think about how you approach these things as we go through this, right? So in the square brackets there, we've got prepare tax returns. We could put anything in there which is related to accounting. Maybe it is prepare a set of monthly accounts or annual accounts, or do complex tax planning, or do payroll, or do compliance services. But I work to complete those services, whatever it is. That's why I go to work. That's my job. That's the reason why I am important in my role. But a business builder will take a slightly nuanced view of that and say, I work in order to build a business which does whatever those things are: monthly accounting, annual accounting, tax planning, compliance, and so on. Now, think of the difference there. A business relies on people. It's got well-defined services. It's got an engine which brings in clients. It's got an engine which satisfies those clients. And it's less dependent on the individual actually doing the work. So it's kind of an obvious but a slightly nuanced difference in approach there. Now, another thing we'll hear accountants sometimes say is that successful businesses, and we're talking accounting businesses here, tend to be led by busy owners who produce a lot. Produce means they actually do a lot of the work, and that takes a lot of their time. And that's what will lead to the success in the business. If they're getting a lot done, then the business will be successful. But here's a completely different mindset on that. Successful businesses do not depend on the owners for much, if anything. Okay, so that restaurant we looked at, owned by Gordon Ramsay in a country which he doesn't visit very often, is obviously not dependent on him, but he remains the owner of that business. So some would say, a business builder would say, that's a very successful business because he's obviously built the systems, the processes, the teams, the organization, the technology, the understanding of the customers, and so on, which is driving the business to success. Another strategic idea is really how we plan and how we look ahead, and what we might find an accountant saying. And accountants can be pretty good at planning, right? They might look out 12 months and say, well, I've got to serve these clients. I've got to offer them these services. And if I do that by configuring a team of people, we'll generate quite a lot of profit in the coming years. And that's a very P&L focused view, looking out 12 months or so. Now, a business builder might take a different view and say, look, I'm doing this based on a 3 or a 5 or a 10-year agenda. Now, that'll depend on where this person is in their career and the nature of their business and so on. But what I want to do is get exactly the outcomes I want. That could be a lifestyle outcome. I want to not work as much in the business. It could be a financial outcome. It could be the kind of work you're doing. I only want to do advisory work with high-profile clients. I want to have multiple offices. I want to focus on acquisitions. I want to focus on marketing and creating content, or whatever it is. But that's the outcome I want. And based on that, I'm going to decide what I need to do tomorrow, next week, next month, or in the coming year. So there's a much longer term perspective in the business builder as they think strategically about their business than the very tactical 12-month P&L view, which we might see in a traditional accounting sense. Now, we're going to go through a couple more ideas here. I don't want to suggest that it's one or the other. You're either in camp A or B, or on the left or the right of the screen. I think it's a continuum. And I feel that if we're going to create those options that we talked about, we need to move a little closer to the right-hand side of the continuum. Here's some more ideas. What about wealth creation? So many accountants would say real wealth creation or considerable wealth creation is not achievable in accounting. The best we can do basically is focus on our gross profits and then our net income from the business. And so what we're best doing is just looking at profitability, maximizing our top line, and then focusing on driving net income as best as we can. That's what we can expect from our accounting business. And a business builder might take a different view, which is that wealth creation is entirely achievable. You know, the accounting industry is wonderful because we have repeat clients who come back year in and year out. They need similar services from us. Some of them will grow each year. So if we can create a strong balance sheet in our businesses, and that means having really goodwill and processes and systems and unique intellectual property, we can indeed create significant wealth. And the other thing which drives wealth in an accounting business is reduced dependence on one or a few people. So if we can do all of that, the systems, the processes, the loyalty of the clients, the distinguished services, without making it dependent on one or a few people, we can create a really successful business here. And we're fortunate in Panalitix to have clients who are sitting on businesses which are of considerable value, and they'll realize that value when they come to exit at some point in time. And a related point is the traditional accountant's mindset might be that what I'm going to earn out of my business is going to be directly linked to my contributions. In other words, if I produce a lot, if I bill a lot, I'm going to earn much more out of my business. Whereas the business builder says, look, in fact, I want to reduce my contribution potentially down to zero, but I'm still going to earn more because the flywheel of my business, the engine of my business is still going to enable me to be paid, whether that's in compensation or distributions or some combination of those. I'm going to be able to pull out a lot of cash from my business without it being linked to my direct contributions. Here's another example. I hope that I hope none of you have to go to the doctor often, but some of us will have to. And often we encounter very dedicated, loyal, and motivated people who do brilliant work with their patients. They take a long time to understand and diagnose the existing ailments that we have, and they're very diligent about prescribing us with solutions for those. And they've worked on their bedside manner. They have to do a really important job, which encompasses many different skills. And many of these people will succeed and enjoy and be very stimulated by their professional service over many years. I came across this gentleman. His name's Leonard Schliefer. Some of you may have heard of him, but he was a physician, just like those guys on the left-hand side there, from New York, with an interest in neurology. That's what he became interested in, and became frustrated that there were not enough solutions for ailments like Alzheimer's and other neurodegenerative diseases. He started a business called Regeneron back in 1988. And his simple concept was, I think that a science-based business, which does a lot of research, could produce some solutions for patients in these very specific fields that he was interested on. Anyway, it's become a very successful business, and he's become a very successful person. But I heard him speak once, and he talks about the business mindset that he had to apply to his professional service, in this case, medicine, and how he's built a significant business in that area. And it's another reminder that this is not unique to accountants. It's unique to anyone who's got a very distinguished craft or profession, like doctors, architects, lawyers, and accountants, but who can then embrace a mindset to get them to a different place in business. Let's talk about doing the work and the mindset of doing the work. Sometimes we find accountants who believe that they're mostly producers. I mean, after all, they've got all those skills and that experience, and many people in their organizations do not have those skills or experience. So they think, well, I better do the work because I'm good at it, and that's what I'm trained to do, and I can generate a lot of fees by doing the work. You see the word grinder there, and in Panalitix, we talk about finders, minders, and grinders, where grinders are producers. They love to just get on with the tools and do the work. They take pride in accurate and timely production of the work. They are not minders necessarily who manage other people to do the work. They create systems and processes and set deadlines and internal communication schedules and various other things which manage the grinders to do the work. And then, of course, we have finders who interact with clients because they've got good interpersonal skills, communication skills. They're good in marketing and problem solving and sales and so on. So a typical accountant might say, look, I need to do a lot of production because that's what I'm good at. That's my unique skill. But the business builder will say, my role is to make sure the work gets done without necessarily doing it. So I need systems in place. I need management in place. That's minding. And I also need to ensure that the clients are taken care of. And I'm going to dedicate time to that because I know it's not only difficult or challenging, but it requires time and a dedicated focus. So this business builder is less interested in the production side and more intent on ensuring that the management of the producers and the management of the clients is taken care of. And we often find accountants who want to do more. They feel they need to work harder. The more they can produce on behalf of their clients, the more reward they will get into the business. So you see accountants working extraordinary hours, particularly seasonally in the United States. And what we might be thinking of rather is how to work smarter. Again, if we can set up systems and processes and develop teams who are competent because they're properly trained and they have all of the tools, then we can create capacity and we can focus our efforts on managing clients, satisfying clients, because that leads to retention, it leads to upselling, it leads to referrals and so on. And then eventually we build teams or individuals to do that as well. So the business builder is constantly looking for ways to get other people to do things, starting with production and then moving on to management and client relationship management as well. Now, let's talk about leadership and the mindset of the business builder in leadership, because as owners, we need to lead our teams. And, why should leadership be easy? Again, did you take a course on leadership back in your accounting qualification? Probably not. Most accountants learn how to lead by doing and by making mistakes, and that's absolutely satisfactory. But it's not necessarily something that's going to come naturally. It takes time and it takes energy. So an accountant who's thinking, yeah, I'll just do the leadership of the business after I've done all my other accounting work, is probably naive. And a smarter way to think about this is that you're going to have to develop skills and experience beyond the skills of accounting. And it's going to take dedication and focus and learning and finding time to develop those skills. So that's a fundamental difference. And people can learn certainly by doing and making errors. And I think that's a very good way to learn. Some of the lessons there are very profound when you have made some kind of mistake, but you've moved on and learned from that mistake. But many of the business builders will take on coaches or mentors that help them develop the entrepreneurial, the leadership, and the managerial skills, which will help them to build these businesses. An investment in learning to lead is a very important part of a business builder's mindset. And we learn this by looking at very successful businesses, not just in accounting, but outside of accounting too, where it's very common for those CEOs and leaders to have coaches and so on. Many of you will probably love music in some form, as do I. And look at these dedicated musicians. They not only they have a variety of skills: a saxophonist, a guitarist, a vocalist, a percussionist. They are working together collaboratively here to produce music. I think they're having fun. It looks that way. They probably love what they're doing. And I imagine there's a tip jar in front of them. I can't see that for sure. And they're hoping that passers-by might put some cash in that tip jar. There are many dedicated musicians, either performers like these or session musicians and so on, who put a lot of energy into this. And it's a wonderful thing to be doing, which creates a lot of happiness for the protagonist, but also for other people. I'm reminded, having just read the autobiography of the gentleman on the left, perhaps you know who that is. That's Andrew Lloyd Webber, British composer. This is probably taken in the early 70s. He's with his counterpart, Sir Tim Rice, who's on the right of the screen. This is shortly after they produced Jesus Christ Superstar, for which Lloyd Webber was the composer and Tim Rice was the lyricist. They went on to do Joseph and his amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat and Evita and a number of other things. Then they parted ways. Lloyd Webber went on to Phantom of the Opera and a lot of things, and Tim Rice into the Disney world of Lion King and Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast and so on. But here's what's important. At the core of their skills are the craft of being a composer and a lyricist. That's the equivalent of their accounting skill, if you like. It's a craft that they've honed over many years, but they've also become very accomplished business people because, and Lloyd Webber makes this very clear in his book, the mindset that he embraced as he had these epiphanies along the way as to what it is that makes someone embrace business. And he's a very, very successful business person, an owner of theaters, a producer of some very significant musical properties, and a very successful person in business. Though he started out as a craftsman, as a composer, he found this mindset. And I recommend his book if you want to understand his journey as a business builder, because he speaks very clearly about that. Continuing on the idea of leadership, this is something we hear from accountants quite a lot. You know what's holding me back? I just don't have enough time. Of course, I'd love to launch some advisory services and I'd like to spend more time training my team, and I'd like to get more technology into my business, and I'd like to spend more time with my key clients. But when do I have the time for that? I just don't have the time. I have so much to do. I've got a lot of grinding, production to do, and lots of other things. What you'll hear from the business builder is what's holding me back is I don't have enough resources, right? I haven't got the people in place who can go and do certain things, which frees me up to do what I need to do, which is the value add aspects of building a business, the things I love doing, and the things that'll get me closer to my goals. So the nuance there is pretty clear. I think that it's interesting because accountants ought to be good at understanding return on investment. In other words, if you were to hire additional people, and you're probably saying, yeah, well, it's really hard to hire right now. There are ways offshoring and subcontracting and so on. But if we could get the people in place, which allows us to delegate better, and then if we could get better at delegation and more focused on that, and then training, we could create more capacity, which will free us up. And yes, that's not necessarily easy and it might take some time. But if we get that done, we can focus on things, and the ROI should be clear. The investment of time and energy to create that capability, that balance sheet capability in your business, will allow you as a business builder to focus on other things. And, you know, if you don't believe it from me, look at people who've built successful businesses, because that's exactly what they've embraced. And I touched on delegation there. We often find with accountants an obsession with understanding absolutely everything in the business, not just the production of the work, the technical aspects of the accounting and their clients, but also the technology in the business, the relationships with your landlords, everything about the clients, the passwords, the way that the payroll is done internally, and the internal bookkeeping and reporting and everything administrative and operational. We find accountants can become obsessed with those ideas, which consumes a lot of time. Some of them will delegate those effectively. A business builder is saying, my role as leader and owner of this business is to build teams so that I can delegate all tasks to people sufficiently skilled and trained in those areas. And eventually, I will not have a role in this business because I've effectively delegated everything. And that's where my competitive advantage is the ability to delegate well and accurately and effectively. So again, I present this not as either or, you're either on the left or the right, but as a continuum. And I urge people to act closer to the right-hand side of the continuum, because that's where better business will be built. We're going to finish up on mindset in a second. You know, of course, people are important in our businesses, right? You'll find the accountants say, look, if I'm going to succeed, I really need a group of skilled and motivated people. That's the absolute fundamental driver of success in my business. But I have found business builders take a slightly different view of that. They'll say, of course, people are important. Without people, we cannot succeed. But ultimately, our success is going to depend on the systems and the processes that we put in place, which guide people to be effective and efficient. And in so doing, we are going to reduce dependence on people. Now, on the right-hand side, the accountant's mindset, it requires you to have highly skilled, motivated, and driven people, exceptional people. If you're not going to give them absolute clarity on systems and processes, you need exceptional people. You want them to think on the fly. You want them to develop solutions along the way. But on the right-hand side, what we're saying is that let's create the structures and the processes, and then we don't need people that are quite as exceptional in order to fulfill the obligations within the business, right? And that's a much better long-term approach. Many accountants who take the left-hand view will become frustrated. We often find them saying, well, why aren't people more like me? I mean, I do everything in the business. I do a lot of the grinding, and I manage, and I go out and see clients. And why can't everyone else do that? Well, one reason they can't do it probably is there's not the systems and structures in place to help them to do that. Here's an interesting observation of accountants. Some of them are afraid to work less for a couple of reasons. And one of those reasons is that, yeah, but I don't want my team to feel that I'm not doing my bit. I'm not contributing enough, right? That'll make my team feel that I'm selfish, and they might even become resentful. But a business builder takes a broader view of that and says, I have a really important responsibility to my team, and that is to ensure that everyone's playing to their strengths. And I need to get myself out of the weeds and out of the day-to-day so that I can structure our business in a way that people play to their strengths, because that's going to be good for everyone. It's going to be good for our clients. It's going to be good for our team who are playing to their strengths. It's going to be good from the position of profitability and so on. So let me get myself out of those things. And if that looks like I'm working less, well, so be it. In fact, business building is not necessarily working less. It can be working more. It's just working a little smarter. Now, did I say that this is all easy and simple and you just implement this tomorrow and everything changes? I didn't say that, did I? I want to illustrate a case study which really unfolded over years, but it might give you some inkling into how we go about this. And this business I'm going to talk about here was actually founded back in 2011. That's a long time ago now, based in Tampa, Florida. And it was founded by a gentleman, young at the time, who had worked in the Big Four in he wasn't a partner, but he was on the track to becoming a partner, been there for 6 years. Prior to that, he'd been in his family business for about 18 months, but he'd clashed with dad, he'd clashed with his brother and said, I've got an accounting degree, maybe I should go out into the world, be an accountant. But he was a little frustrated in the Big Four at the pace at which he was making progress. So he decided to start his own firm back in 2011. And not bad in his first year, because he took on some clients immediately, and his friends and family supported him. He had not a bad outcome, about 550K in revenue in year one. So he was well on his way to developing his business. And he worked really hard over the next few years. He got a lot of client referrals. He got some bigger clients. He leveraged his work back in the Big Four to develop some relationships, which led to some additional clients. And 3 years later, he had quadrupled the size of the business. It was a profitable business. He was taking a modest income salary out himself, but then there was a good amount of cash to distribute at the end of that, because he ran a very tight business as he built a small team. And speaking of the team, what he started to encounter now was the realization that he was working really, really hard, and he was doing kind of lots of things in the business. There was this very flat structure, what we call a broad structure, versus a deep structure in the business, which meant that everyone kind of reported to him. He had some senior accountants, some more junior accountants, someone doing payroll, someone in operations, and everyone came to him with their problems, or their challenges, their opportunities. And he was very much involved in everything that was going on in the business. In addition to producing a lot of work for himself, he was managing the others, and he was trying to manage these increasingly complex client relationships, which is the work he really enjoyed doing, actually. And we calculated that he was working around 2,500 hours in 2015, although there's a theory that some of his hours he was working were not on the clock, and it was probably a little more than that. And then a really important thing happened in around 2016. He begrudgingly started to delegate some of the operations of the business. And there's a list of things there: the accounts payable, the collections or accounts receivable, his own internal accounting, because he was spending time on his own bookkeeping. He was the accountant who said, I don't want anyone else to be able to touch that kind of stuff. Marketing administration, posting, the website, and so on, some internal IT management of the passwords, security considerations, and so on. Now, each one of those required a dedicated, focused attempt to move to another person or people in the organizations. And he quite honestly messed it up a couple of times and found it didn't work. And he was drawn back into doing some of those things. But eventually he was very driven to get that off his plate, and he did that successfully. And what that really did was he got really excited about the concept of delegation and getting work off his plate, and he talks about that as an epiphany. And a really critical decision was the appointment of what he called a chief operating officer, but then they became a practice manager in terms of title. And he bravely, and this is back in 2016, appointed someone who was quite talented and quite accomplished, and paid them 155K per annum. Now, remember what I said about the P&L focus. That was arguably a very bad decision if you're focused in the short term and on the P&L, right? I mean, that's money that was flowing out of the business, which wasn't necessarily immediately adding value. It was something that other people who were much cheaper could have done, including the founder himself. But he decided, I'm going to invest in that and get a lot more things off his plate. And that's what happened over the next 12 to 18 months. He started to get out of the grinding work. That's the low level production work, and then the higher level production work. And he stopped managing the grinders. In other words, reviewing all of their work, recruiting, training, internal communication, capacity planning, scheduling the work, allocating the work, setting systems and processes. He stopped doing all of that and just being the resource that everyone came to every time they had a question. And he started to focus only on a few high-end clients, which he enjoyed working with. And that was another epiphany, as he puts it, that his real passion in this business was working very closely, coaching these entrepreneurial owners, people who were going through a similar journey to what he was going through. And that's where he decided to focus a lot of his time, until that's all he was doing. The next major delegation he got to was building a team that could do the marketing, the content creation, the outbound marketing, the content marketing, the memberships of chambers of commerce and so on, and then closing deals. There was a time where he was the only one who could really bring on new clients, but that became delegated. And then he delegated his leadership role, and that COO that he had hired back 5 years earlier was appointed CEO, so took on an executive role in the business. The business achieved $10 million in revenue about 10 years after inception. And that was a major goal that he had set very early on. So it was a major landmark in the business. And at that time, the founder, and he still does this to this day actually, coaches a small number of clients, high value clients paying quite significant fees. And he puts in a relatively modest, if you do the math there, it's about $1,000 per hour that he's getting. But this is work that he enjoys. He would do more of this. In fact, he says sometimes, I would do this for free. He loves getting really deep into advising these clients. He also found with all his free time, he wanted something else to do. He didn't want to do more of the coaching work. And so he has some interests outside of his business now, which is interesting. He's focused on that as well. And it'll be interesting how this all unfolds in the coming years. And then he appointed himself chairman of the business because he didn't want to be in any executive role. He wanted to be basically a grinder, if you like, doing those 6 clients a year, producing work for them because it's the work he enjoys, but having no role in finding or minding, but being a chairman to look over the business, to be a source of inspiration for the CEO and for other team members, and also to make sure the business stays on track. And longer term, he might consider some kind of exit. So making money in your sleep, what is it? It is deriving cash from your business where there is no direct contribution, no contribution which correlates exactly with the cash that you're taking out, right? And I present it to you today as a long-term endeavor, but an endeavor which can be very, very rewarding for people that want to either free themselves up from working as intensely in the business, who want to create more wealth, who want to create a business which is less dependent on themselves. And the key tactic to getting there is embracing the mindset of a business builder, and perhaps getting rid of a mindset which is that of a traditional accountant. Remember, it's not binary, one or the other. It's a continuum. I hope there's something in there that you can apply. If you'd like more on this, Panalitix does a number of events like this. They're available on our website. They're free. We'd love to see you there. We do those mentoring programs that I talked about, and I'd love to share, learn more about your business and see if you're suited to some of those group or individual programs. We do some courses from time to time on a range of subjects. If you're not interested in a longer term program, you might want to take one of our 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 9-week type courses. We have one coming up in November. This is about reducing dependence on the owners of the business to drive business value. And we're all about systems and processes and teams which take the weight off owners. These tend to be run over, this one is a short course over 3 weeks. We look at the current position in your business, how you're structured, and then how your team is organized and what systems are in place. Those are the 3 things that we study. There's a lot of detail behind that we go into. We have proprietary methods to understand what it is that you're doing. We're running this course in the early part, or the mid part actually, of November. There's some live sessions as well as some activities which we ask you to engage in. And the whole objective here is to set some kind of plan where you can see a pathway to reduced dependence on yourselves in the business, or perhaps it's your leadership team. If you'd like more information on that, please get in touch. I'd also like to mention quickly our Learning Hub. This is there's a free version of this. You can find this on our website. It covers most of the things that we've discussed today. There are resources in the form of videos or text resources. There's templates. There are checklists. There are activities, exercises you can do in your teams. There's a clone which enables you to ask a question on any aspect of your accounting business, and you will get an immediate reply like you would expect from ChatGPT, except that it is calling on the Panalitix body of knowledge and resources that we've developed over many years. If you want some of the tools that are available, they're available on a paid program. It's a modest investment. It's good for not just leaders and owners of firms. There's material for the receptionist, for your marketing manager, for junior accountants who are trying to learn better workflow, better client management, how to communicate with clients, and so on. So there's a huge body of resources there. If you'd like more information on any of this, Kim is very responsive and knowledgeable about anything that we've talked about today, and I'd be happy to have some kind of dialogue with you as well. But I will close up now by saying that I hope you got something out of this in terms of how you can take a business perspective and develop a mindset around developing a business in your accounting business. It's wonderful what accountants do. They create such a lot of value. I'm frustrated when I see them less happy and fulfilled and rewarded in their businesses than I feel they ought to be. And I think the key to that might be reducing our professional services or accounting mindset and embracing more of a business building mindset, which is a long-term endeavor. Thank you very much for attending either live or the recording today. I'd love to hear more about and learn more about your businesses. So please get in touch anytime. But at this point, I'm going to hand you back to the Earmark team for a quick video on getting those CPE credits. Thanks again for your attention today. Have a great day. Bye.
Today's event has ended. To earn CPE, go to earmark.app or scan the QR code on the screen. Then log in or create your free account. Search for the course by tapping on the magnifying glass icon on the home screen and then entering the name of this event. It takes a few days to make the course, so if you're attending this event live, keep an eye out for an email letting you know when the course is available. Pass the quiz to earn your CPE, then tap the button to email yourself a certificate. Stay tuned for more events from Earmark. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon.